Podcast Answer Man, episode number 407.
Entertaining, educational, and encouraging content that makes a difference.
This is GSPN.TV.
Join the community.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Podcast Answer Man. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft, and this, my friends, is the podcast devoted to helping you take your message, your business, and your life to the next level. That's right, my friends. It does not matter if you are brand new to this online content creating world we live in, or if you've been creating content for many years. There's something that we can not only do to take our own lives to the next level, but things that we can do to help other people take their lives to the next level. Yeah, that was a little different than the weeks past, and that's because I'm thinking a lot about this message that's always been in my heart that drew me into podcasting in the first place. Those of you who have been following me for a very long time, you know my story, that it wasn't the promise of fame and celebrity status that drew me into podcasting. It wasn't the draw of millions of dollars being laid at my feet from advertisers and sponsors and other different various monetization strategies and income streams. And it wasn't any of that drew me into podcasting. What drew me into podcasting was the fact that I got out there and just created some content about something that I was passionate about, and other people who were also passionate about that same topic took an interest in what I had to say. And through just being myself and sharing my own experiences and sharing my own stories about what's going on in my life, how I think about things, my worldview, all of a sudden people would write to me and say, Cliff, wow, thank you for sharing that in your podcast. That's had a profound impact in my life. In fact, here are some things that I've decided to change in my own life as a result of what you shared. My friends, it's the influence that we have in other people's lives by creating content that is what drew me into podcasting. That's what keeps me going in podcasting. Somebody recently asked me, hey, Cliff, after, I'm getting ready to do this course or webinar or blog post. I can't remember what it is. I get so many of these requests a week. But the one question they were asking is like, I'm looking at all these people who are creating content week after week after week, and they've got hundreds, or in your case, thousands of episodes. What keeps you motivated? What is it that keeps driving you to create new content week after week after week? When, what is it? And for me, it's the fact that I know that when I get behind the microphone, I have the opportunity to share something that just might be what somebody needs to make a powerful and positive change in their life. That's what keeps me coming back here week after week. Now, I won't tell you that that's the only reason. I was having a conversation with the folks in my mastermind group, and we were talking about, people who have this narcissistic tendency of saying, hey, look at me. And, I just did something great. I would love to have you pat me on the back for it. And I think one of the members in my mastermind group this week was a little bit shocked about how transparent and authentic I was when I told him that, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to tell you that there are some things that I do that initially start out as a result of some narcissistic tendencies that I have. I talked about that. I did a whole entire episode on narcissism a couple months ago. In fact, I just looked it up here, and it's episode number 380. And so if you go to podcastanswerman.com/380, it's titled, Are Podcasters Narcissists? And, I went off a little bit on a tangent with that particular topic, but I've come to embrace my personality. I don't believe that I'm a narcissist to the point where I need to seek medical attention for it. Some of you probably disagree. That's okay. But the reality is while sometimes I might actually be sharing some of the things that I'm doing because, well, I like to get a little bit of affirmation from my community. I am a person that has studied the 5 love languages, if you've ever heard of that. If not, you can just do a Google search for 5 love languages. You'll find there's a book out there that talks all about this. But anyway, I do know that words of affirmation is a huge deal to me. I mean, it is something that I maybe not had enough of when I was a kid, and so I often seek the affirming words of others and pats on the back, and I realize that's a part of who I am and stuff. So there are some things that I'm doing in social media. There's some things that I might be even say in a podcast episode that are somewhat self-serving. And I don't believe that is necessarily always a bad thing, especially due to the fact of what I've seen as the results of me sharing some of those things, where that started out as the original motivator, but actually seeing that by sharing that and being authentic and transparent, by sharing those things, it has had a powerful difference in other people's lives. It's been an encouragement to them. It's been inspiration for them. It's been motivation for them to change their lives or to do something different or whatever the case may be. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But, this whole topic of changing the world or influencing others with the content that you create, this has been a theme for me ever since I first started. And I really believe that everyone who's listening to my voice, if you are creating content, and by the way, it does not matter if it's podcast content or not. And I know that there are at least 10 or 20 of you out there that are listening to my voice right now, and you do not have a podcast, and you never intend to have one. But maybe you have a blog, or maybe you have a social media account with Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or some other service where you are online sharing content, whether that be 140 characters or more, video or audio. It does not matter. The fact is that pretty much everybody here listening to my voice is probably a content creator in one way, shape, or form. And I believe that every single person hearing my voice right now, and that does mean you, I believe you can change the world one person at a time. I believe that you can radically impact someone's life for the better. And I want to encourage you today to do that. Now, I've talked about this. This is actually the main focus of the closing keynote address that I gave for the very first podcast movement last year. In fact, this is going to be the same topic that I'm going to be doing for the opening keynote for New Media Europe in Manchester in the UK later this year in September. So I'm excited about that. I'm sure I'm going to be adding some new stories to it and kind of refining that message even further. So I'm looking forward to delivering that. But in that talk that I gave at Podcast Movement and that I will be giving at the New Media Europe conference, I talk about 4 ingredients that if you include these 4 ingredients, you're assured to have influence in the lives of people who listen to your show. And you can, of course, choose for that influence to be a good influence. And those 4 ingredients that I talk about, and I'm not going to go into great detail on these. Hopefully you'll come to New Media Europe. And if you don't make it to New Media Europe, then don't worry. I will actually record my keynote address there and put it out as a podcast episode afterwards. Now, by the way, before I go any further, I realize many of you are saying, wait a second, Cliff. You said that you were going to put out your New Media Expo talk after you got back from Vegas, but I haven't seen that yet. And the reason why is because, I just, between me and you and everybody listening, the turnout at my talk there was rather low, and attendance overall was a little bit lower than what I've experienced in the past. And the talk was so powerful and had such a profound impact for the people who were there. I begged and pleaded with the organizers of Podcast Movement and said, guys, can I please give this talk? And normally they will not allow anybody to ever give a talk at Podcast Movement that has been, given elsewhere. They want something fresh and brand new. And I said, guys, trust me, it will be fresh and new to the people who come. And anyway, I am so thankful that they're allowing me to give this talk about how to build a deeper relationship with your existing audience at Podcast Movement in August this year, coming up in just a month or so, a couple months here. And I will put the recording of my podcast movement version of that talk out as a podcast episode. But anyway, going back to changing the world, what are the 4 ingredients? Number 1, have a clear message that people can identify with. All right? Do you have a clear message that people can connect with, that they feel meets a pain point in their life? For me, I've had several different shows, several different episodes sometimes that actually has a clear message that really draws people in. Whether that be a message of, are you sick and tired of living paycheck to paycheck? And when you actually get your paycheck, by the end of the day, you still have no money left. Well, gosh, wouldn't it be great? Have you ever dreamed of the possibility? Do you think it's even in the scope of eternal possibility that while you're walking on this earth, that you could live debt-free? Would you like to hear more? And so that's a message that people can identify with, living paycheck to paycheck. That was a part of my history. That's a part of my journey, and how I broke free from that, and how I've been free from that since 2007. And that's been a message that I've shared with people that has had a powerful impact in their lives. Another clear message is, hey guys, have you ever been stuck in a 9-to-5 quote unquote day job, or maybe you're in a day job that you hate, that you work 80 hours a weekend? Maybe you're making lots of money, or maybe not enough money, but either way, there's no money they could pay you that would actually make you enjoy the work that you're doing. You absolutely despise it. You can't wait for the weekend, and the weekends are too short, and it's just sucking the life out of you. What if I told you that you could actually make more money doing work that you absolutely love? Sound interesting? Well, that's a message. That's a journey. That's been a part of my journey. That's been a story that I've been privileged to share, and that's a message that people can identify with. In fact, that's what a lot of what brought in a majority of the audience that follows me today. And there are many different areas, different messages. I've done 30 different podcasts. I've done shows about, being overworked and trying to do everything on your own, and not wanting to hire an employee because you're not quite yet in that position financially. But man, wouldn't it be great to have somebody who could help you at a low cost, where they could do work for you, so that while you're doing that work, you could actually be making more money than what you're paying the person to do the work that's freeing you up to do to make the money. Well, this is what if I told you could hire this thing called a virtual assistant? And I created a 38 episode podcast of the Virtual Assistant podcast. These are the kinds of things that I'm talking about. Having a clear message, something that really tugs on people and say, yes, I identify with that. I identify with this message, and I want that for myself. That is a key ingredient. Do you know what that message is? When people think of you, when they think of your brand, do they identify? Not only do they identify with your message, the question is when they think about you, can they identify a message? So ask yourself that. The second ingredient of creating life-changing format is being yourself, being who you are. Not trying to be an expert when you have this crazy idea of what an expert is, meaning, and you might think that an expert is somebody who has all of the answers, who has maybe 20 or 30 more years of experience beyond what you currently have, and all of this other stuff, and you're trying to actually create content that just makes it appear that you know more than everything. Everybody that's listening to you, and you feel that pressure and anxiety of and stress that maybe you're going to be quote unquote found out. That people are going to find out that you're just an average guy, and that what you know isn't really all that much in the grand scheme of things. In fact, oftentimes maybe you'll get to the place where sometimes you feel like the more you learn about your particular industry or your target niche, it seems like the more you learn, it's the more you find out that you have no clue about, And oftentimes I feel that way with faith. So that's an entirely different talk we could go into. But anyway, this thing that we deal with, sometimes it's called the imposter syndrome. And if you want an entire episode of me talking about how to get over the imposter syndrome, I encourage you to listen to episode number 364 of Podcast Answer Man. You can just go to podcastanswerman.com/364. So what I talk about, though, is this idea of just being yourself. Just, hey, this is who I am. This is what my experience up to this point has been. This is where I've come from. This is where I am today. And here's where I hope to go into the future. Just be authentic. Share that genuinely. And you know what? Yes, there are always going to be people out there who know more than you do. There's people out there with lots more experience than you do. But the reality is there is always going to be somebody out there who knows less than you do. And oftentimes, there are people out there who have more experience than you do in your industry or your niche. There are people out there who have more, did I say more experience already? They know more than you do. However, I can assure you that there are going to be some of those people who would still love to tune into your show and start hearing topics discussed and hashed out and taught from a fresh, brand new perspective, because they are so far removed from the beginner or the novice or the intermediate person in this area that they've lost touch with the ability to kind of remember what it was like when they first got started. I'll never forget about a friend of mine named Stuart who wrote me a letter that was attached with a very nice check as a contribution to support the content that I was creating. And in it, he says, listen, one of the things I love about listening to your show is I'm so reminded of the passion I once had when I was first starting out. And that he told me about the start of his business, the genesis of his business and how it got started and how things took off. And he's like, man, I listened to you, and some of that passion and some of that excitement, some of that perspective, it reminds me, and it's sparking something within me. And by the way, as a result of that, we've had, Stuart Crane and myself have had amazing friendship that's developed since then, and it's still developing. I'm very thankful for that. So the idea isn't that you have to feel like an imposter. If you feel like an imposter, get over yourself and don't feel like you have to be anything more than who you are now. The thing is we're not in competition with other people. We're in competition with who we were yesterday. The question is not, do I know more than everyone else? But the question is, do I know more today than I did yesterday? Am I learning? Am I growing? Am I moving forward? And if so, the idea is just to share that journey with other people, and they will be able to relate to it, and they will be encouraged and inspired by it. That's the second ingredient. The third ingredient is simply caring about people. And this is a whole lot more than caring about numbers and caring about statistics and all of that other stuff. No, we're talking about caring about individual human beings who may potentially be listening to your content. And when you find out that that you care enough about them to want to find ways to take your unique ability to serve and care for those people, even if it may have nothing to do with your particular business or niche. Are you aware of a need in a human being's life that you could easily fix by connecting them with someone, or connecting them to a resource, or providing a link to something, or simply just writing back and saying, taking 2 or 3 minutes of your time to write and say something that's kind and positive and encouraging to them, and literally turn around and make their day? I mean, do you care enough about people that you're willing to build your community and to build relationships with people one person at a time. If you do, you'll find that you'll have a greater amount of influence in the lives of the people who are consuming your content. And then ingredient number 4, and of course there are many other ingredients that you could throw in, but the fourth one that I cover in this keynote talk that I do, the fourth one is build environments of community. Create ways for people not just to connect with you and for you to connect with them, but find ways to take those people who are sharing that same passion with you, but also share plug them into, find ways so that they can plug into relationships with other people who also share that passion that everybody commonly shares with you. And yeah, we could go on for hours for that, but that's the whole idea. If you have those 4 ingredients, I believe you can positively and powerfully make a difference in people's lives. And I encourage you to start thinking, how can I take the content that I'm creating and how can I make sure that I have a clear message that I'm communicating and that really is something that's powerful for people's lives? How can I be more genuine, more authentic, more transparent? How can I be more myself without trying to fake it, put masks on, or be anything more than who I am? Can I just be a little bit more comfortable being in my own skin in front of my audience? Number 3, how can I number 1 have a greater and deeper heart for serving the people who listen to my podcast or read my blog or who are connected with me on social media? How can I intentionally find ways to connect with those people, to get to build deeper relationships with those people, and to actually find ways to communicate that I really do care about each one of them as a human being, whether they're like me or not, whether they're a potential customer or not? How can I communicate to people how much I care? And then what environments can I create? Whether it be a meetup or an online chat room, a Facebook group, and there are all kinds of different opportunities for you to create an environment of community where people can get to know not just you, but each other as well. So let me just encourage you to do that today. And I want to just say, I am actually launching a brand new campaign for myself. As I said, I've had the honor of having people write to me and say, Cliff, as a result of something you shared about your faith, I've come to a relationship with Jesus as a result of that. That's pretty powerful kind of influence, let me tell you. I've had people who say that, we're debt free as a result of you and your wife sharing your story. I've had people who said that they've decided to reconcile their marriage as a result of content that Stephanie and I have shared. I've had 2 different people who have told me that they've decided not to commit suicide because of the encouragement of content that I've created. I've had many thousands of people who have told me that the sole reason they created a podcast was because of the inspiration they received from me, and oftentimes the information that they received from me, and that they now are having a powerful and positive impact on the lives of their audience. And lately, over the last 6 months or more, I have actually received hundreds of emails, hundreds of people who have written to me to tell me that they've been inspired to live fully alive. And specifically what they mean by that is that they are intentionally looking out and finding ways to take their health and fitness journey to the next level. And that's really been a part of what's been on my heart, my mind. I shared at the beginning of this year here in Podcast Answer Man, I told you guys that in 2006, or is this 2015, right? I told you guys that at the beginning of the year that things were going to be shifting for me, that this year I decided that I'm not focused on business growth and working around the clock like I have been in the past. In fact, I'm going to be making some decisions that probably means that not only is my business not going to grow financially, I'm probably going to take a significant financial hit this year. And the reason why is because I need to get serious about my own personal health and physical fitness. And well, my friends, that's exactly what I did. I shut down a lot of things that I didn't have to do day after day. I instead of doing 6 podcasting A to Z courses this year, I'm only doing 4. And also, let's just put it this way. I'm doing a lot less in my business, but I'm actually doing a whole lot more than the minimum commitments that I made to working out. I made a commitment back in November to work out 6 days a week, every single week for the rest of my life. And that commitment was only 45 minutes a day, and 4 days a week being intense cardio or aerobic exercise, and 2 days a week being strength training, lifting weights, building muscle, that kind of stuff. Well, since the beginning of this year, not only have I maintained that minimum commitment, but oftentimes I've worked out sometimes as much as 2 or 3 hours in a day. And I've been doing weight training or strength training 3 days a week for an hour each session. So I've gone well above and beyond. And lately, I have become addicted to cycling or riding my bike on the road. It is incredibly awesome, and wow, I'm totally in love with it. Just to give you an idea, yesterday I was riding with my friend Tim Schmoyer over at videocreators.com. Anyway, he and I went for a bike ride yesterday, 22 miles, and with an average speed of 15 miles per hour, and just had the most awesome time. And I've actually done that route, that 22-mile route. I did it just a couple days prior to that. I've done a couple 10-mile rides. I'd say that I'm probably around 70 miles on. Yeah, I'd say I've ridden 70 miles on the road within the last 7 days. And I'm absolutely in love with it. But here's the deal. One of the things that I've been doing is every day since November 14th, I believe, after that workout that I do, I would take my phone and take a selfie, and I would publish it online. I would put it on Instagram, and of course I would share that to Twitter, and I would share it to Facebook. And then, of course I would do that the next day. And sometimes I would work out more than one time a day, so I would do it twice that day. And as you might imagine, of course, here, I'm not known for my brand of health and fitness, right? I'm known more of the entrepreneurial guy, the guy who helps you with your business, taking it to the next level, and more specifically, as you guys are aware, helping people launch and create great podcasts. So my target audience, guess what? They're mostly people who sit behind a computer most of the day and aren't necessarily the type who are, committed to going to the gym every day. And so you can imagine I can only imagine what's going through the minds of the people who have been following me for so many years. And then, oh my goodness, hold on one second. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. I had a text message come in from a family member, and whenever I get that, I tend to kind of, get distracted in a good way because they're a priority. Okay, so I'm back. What was I saying? So I would imagine there are people out there who are sitting behind their computers, and they're probably not all that interested in hearing or seeing all of these posts from me. But the reality is that I was excited and passionate about this commitment. The thing is that it wasn't easy for me at the beginning. And so in a very transparent and authentic way, I will tell you there was a little bit of, let me post this online, because out of all of the people who are following me, I would imagine there'll be some people who are very excited about the fact that I've made this decision, and they will say nice things about the fact that I did what I did. Guys, that's a very real motivation why I started sharing those selfies after every workout. There was something nice about getting those words of affirmation from people, and it was a continual pat on the back that kind of just says, you know what, I'm going to do it again. I like that feeling that I get when people say that, and that motivates me, and I don't want to let those people down. So I don't want to kind of drop the ball on this commitment, and there's a little bit of motivation that comes from that. And so that's what got this thing started. So I would post these things on Instagram and social media and syndicate it out to Facebook and everything. And people did do that. They did give me words of affirmation. It did continue to get me going. And I continued to stick with it. And I actually came to the place where over time I started to really love these workouts. And now I'm completely addicted to these workouts. But what happened is there became a shift in my reasoning for continuing to publish these selfies after every workout. And that started when all of a sudden people would email me and say, Cliff, gosh, because of you, I made the decision to skip this for lunch and have this instead. Or I made the decision to go for a walk today, and I'm going to start doing this more often. And in fact, let me just share with you, let's see here. I want to find this one feedback. Yeah, it's from Nick Pearson, and he wrote this as a Facebook comment. He says, Cliff, after seeing many of your workout pics on my wall, on his Facebook wall. Now, here's the deal. I read that, and immediately this negative. What is that called? I can't think of the name of it. Anyway, this thought came along. It's like, oh gosh, this guy's gonna let me have it for all these these selfies that I'm putting, right? But no, Nick actually says this. He says, after seeing so many of your workout pics on my wall, I am inspired to finally take the steps I need to get into a healthy shape. I did my first walk after work today for about 30 minutes, and I plan to make that a routine. Thanks, Cliff, for the inspiration. So here I thought he was going to say, after seeing so many of your workout pics, I finally decided that I'm going to unfriend you. But no, that's not what he said. I've made a commitment. Starting today, I'm going to start walking 30 minutes a day. And that is awesome. That is, I mean, I'm telling you that, and there are some people out there who are physically fit. They're hitting the gym and they're like, what good is 30-minute walking going to do for you? And that's why it's important to have somebody who hasn't been doing this for years and years, who's lost touch with where some people have to start out. And I know, it wasn't too long ago that I know how big of a deal a 30-minute walk is. So, Nick, that is awesome. I'm so excited about that. John Anderson recently posted on Instagram, I think, or Facebook. I can't remember, actually. Anyway, he says, thankful to have found a physical activity that is actually beneficial to my injured knees. He's still waiting for a surgery date, but until then, he says, let's press on. And he actually posted an image from his workout app that shows that he went on a 16.73 mile bike ride and that he went an average of 11.8 miles per hour. Now, the reason I saw that is because John used the hashtag Train with Cliff. Now, he used it because this week on Pursuing a Balanced Life, I shared with my community that I was going to start publishing all of my workout selfies from this point forward including the hashtag Train with Cliff. Now, I'm going to give credit to the person who was the first one who came up with this particular hashtag. His name is Douglas Boyce. Anyway, he's the first person who was responded to my selfie with his own selfie. So I actually had published my selfie on Instagram. It shared out to Facebook. And in the Facebook comment section, Douglas took a selfie of himself on his bike, and he used an app that put hashtag Train with Cliff on the image and included that picture in the comment on my status update on Facebook. And I'm like, let me think about that. I love that hashtag Train with Cliff. That would be a great way for me to keep up with people who are actually making the decision, being intentional about their health and fitness, taking their health and fitness to the next level as the result of being inspired by what I've been doing. And to know that will continue to motivate me even further. But it also will allow me to demonstrate, potentially, we'll see, it'll allow me to demonstrate for people at New Media Europe when I can actually show them tons and tons and tons of people's selfies and status updates that have been published between now, June 4th, 2015, until September of this year. I'm going to start collecting screen captures of people who are going to be posting updates using hashtag #TrainWithCliff, either on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. So you can post it to any one of those services or all three of them. And I'm tracking those on a daily basis. And the cool thing is if you decide that, hey, I want to get serious, hey, Cliff, yes, I have been sitting behind my computer building my online empire or my business. I've been sitting behind my computer doing all of my work. And I've been, I've got this online connected world and Cliff, I'm with you, man. I have not taken care of myself physically as much as I should. And there are some of you where that's just never been a part of your lifestyle. It had never been a part of my lifestyle either. I mean, I as a kid, I never really got into health and fitness stuff. So this has all been relatively new to me over the last several years and really has taken off in the last 6 months. So there are some of you who that has been the case, and then there are some of you out there, and I know you by name. There are some of you who have been athletic in the past. Some of you have completed triathlons, marathons, cycling centuries, and all of these other things. You used to do all kinds of amazing things, and well, whatever happened over the last year or 3 or 5 years. Things have changed for you, and your priorities have shifted, and life has gotten busy, and you've allowed yourself to be convinced that you don't have time to get out for a walk or a ride or a swim or a half an hour at the gym. You're convinced that you don't know what to do and all of this other stuff, but the reality is that you can get back to it. You can do it, and I want to encourage people out there. This is exciting for me because I've been saying for a long time that I really feel like there is something just over the horizon of this hill that I'm going up. I feel like I'm going up a little bit of a hill, and on the other side, it's the next part of the journey that God has me on, and that is going to allow me to have influence in many more people's lives, and it's going to help me. It's going to have me in a place where I believe that I'll be having a powerful, positive impact and influence in many people's lives in a way that actually makes what I've achieved up to this point, and it's not just me that I've achieved it, but you get the idea. But I believe that there's something bigger that's beyond, and it's not. I don't think that it's just health and fitness. I don't think it's going to be Fitness Answer Man. I think it's probably going to be a bit broader than that, but fitness and health is definitely a key part of it. I know that now. I'm convinced of it. I believe that the reason why you're listening to my voice today, right now, is because you need to be encouraged and inspired to take your health and your fitness to the next level. I believe that. I wholeheartedly believe that. And whether or not that motivation and encouragement comes from me, it doesn't matter. I hope that you find it. And if you would love to be encouraged by me as often as possible, and also as often as possible from other people from the podcast Answer Man and the broader, generally speaking, production network community, or just my network and the network of friends that I'm networked with, then if you start going and posting status updates on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, if you put out selfies and tag Train with Cliff, status updates, tag Train with Cliff, I'm going to be following that tag in those 3 outlets. And I'm encouraging you, those of you who decide that I'm going to start posting status updates and pictures and tagging Train with Cliff. If you tag Train with Cliff, I want to encourage you to also click on the hashtag and let Facebook show you all the other posts with Train with Cliff. Look at all, if you're using Instagram, after you post, click on the hashtag Train with Cliff and look at all the other pictures with Train with Cliff as the hashtag. And if you're on Twitter, After you put your status update there, click on Train with Cliff, and it'll pull up all the other status updates. And I encourage you to read some of those and take a little bit of time to congratulate and give words of affirmation to other people in this community who are intentionally taking their health and fitness to the next level. So, couple things here with this podcast episode. Number one, I want to encourage you as a content creator, whatever kind of content that you're creating. My message today is I want to have a clear message that we can be intentional and we need to be intentional about taking our health and fitness to the next level. I hope that some of you identify with that and that you'll join me and that you'd be willing to quote unquote train with Cliff. And you know what? The question is, what are you training for? This isn't training for a triathlon because guess what? I've already completed my triathlon. No, what this is training for is training for life. Training for life is what we're training for. We're not training for an event. We're training for daily living, fully alive, living the lives for which we were created. Living life to the fullest every single day. Are you willing to train for living life, not just today, but every day moving forward so that you'll train to live a longer life, a healthier life, a more fit life? That's what Train with Cliff means. And I want to encourage you. Train with Cliff. So that's one thing that I want you to do. But also I want you to ask yourself, what is my message with the world? I'm creating content. What do I want to challenge my community to do? What do I want to inspire them to do? Maybe you want to create your own sort of campaign like this. Maybe you want to think, what is my message and how can I have that clear message be communicated to them in such a way that they say, you know what, I identify that. Now what? Well, I encourage you to take that message and be yourself and talk with them, communicate with them exactly from where you are, where you're going, and what's happening. Bring them along the journey with you. Show them that you care for them and create an online environment of community. You do those 4 things, I promise you can change the lives of people who listen to your show or who consume your content, whatever kind of content, in a powerful and positive way. And it may not be by creating your own hashtag campaign, which, by the way, by all means, please feel free to do so. But maybe your online community is starting out with a Facebook group and allowing people to come in for mutual encouragement and conversation and connectedness and stuff like that. Or maybe you're going to have a meetup and get together. Maybe you'll have a free webinar or a Google Hangout or something connecting with people. Maybe you'll do some periscopes and show people that you care. Build environments of community where people can connect with you, but also where you can take those people who are connecting with you and connect them with each other. So that's what today's episode, that's what episode 407 is about. It's number one, how do you create content? What does it take to create content that actually has a powerful impact and influences the lives of the people who listen to your show in such a way that you can change the world through your content? That's number one. And number two, specifically, I'm asking you, are you ready to train with Cliff? Are you ready to train with me? Training for life. And if so, please do me the honor. Would you consider posting as often as you are able to post, either on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook? Just use the hashtag #TrainWithCliff, and I look forward to seeing you online. And my friends, that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. That's what I wanted to share with you. And until then, I encourage you to take everything you do to the next level.
Helping you take everything you do to the next level.